Queens, New York is a wonderful fusion of exotic people, cuisines, and cultures. Look around you and step cautiously. Be aware and very conscious of where you are, for you walk the streets of history. Yes, the streets of Queens were once the playground of many famous people. Sinatra and Tony Bennett, Cyndi Lauper and Satchmo Armstrong, Houdini and ruthless gangsters, whose names cannot be mentioned here. Yet, Queens, New York is also the place where people from all over the world live. Queens, New York is actually the most ethnically diverse place on the planet. So, join us as we explore this wondrous place with the Queen's Digest magazine. Let's meet and learn about these people, where they come from, and who they are.
Going backtrack. The Notorious backtrack story. The clandestine operation, known as the backtrack, was at one time the only way to a better life for many Guyanese people during the period beginning in the 1970s and extending well into the 1990s. Many Guyanese, mostly those of East Indian descent, had suffered terribly under the dictatorship of the party in power during the 70s to the early 90s. Many of these people made the decision to get out and seek better lives elsewhere. They risked almost everything of value just to explore this possibility. In Guyana at one time, there were communities where empty houses stood desolate for decades, their owners having abandoned them in desperate pursuit of a better way of life, through the backtrack. The backtrack, like the blackout and black market, has become an undeniable part of Guyanese history, don't you agree? Let's take a look back at this story, which tells about the lives of some of those people that live in Queens, New York. Hi there and welcome once again to the Queen's Digest magazine. Here is where we explore the stories of the people of Queens, New York, who they are, and where they come from. Among these people of Queens are people from Guyana. I am your host Ryan, and today we'll take a look at the perilous backtrack that many people used in order to escape the poverty, crime and suffering that existed in Guyana in those dark days. So, join me as we look back at this situation that still affects the lives of Guyanese in the 21st century. You should know that, in those days, any mention of the backtrack was spoken of in whispers, and negotiations were conducted behind closed doors, in bars, bottom houses, and other hidden places. These negotiations were arranged through several layers of security measures that ensured that all parties involved remained anonymous until the very last moment. Some of those that were involved in the business actually achieved the distinction and reputation of being folk heroes because of successful migration stories. History records this national adventure as a stark testament to the unwavering desire of Guyanese people to seek a better and safer life, even in the face of extraordinary risk, high cost, and hardship. Many Guyanese paid huge sums of hard-earned cash, while some had money sent to them by relatives abroad to finance this venture. However, many had to sell off their property, including farmlands and even personal jewelry, to pay the people who managed the backtrack. Some people were also scammed and lost their hard-earned money to unscrupulous people pretending to help them. But why did Guyanese use the backtrack? And has this thing ended? The intricate network of shadowy characters and twisting pathways that was known as the backtrack facilitated the illegal movement of people from Guyana and mainly to the United States and Canada. It was driven by a complex interplay of economic disparities, socio-political unrest, and the enduring allure of the American dream. In today's episode, we look into the multifaceted phenomenon of the backtrack, exploring its historical roots, the motivations and experiences of those who undertook this perilous journey, its impact on both Guyana and the US, and the ethical and policy dilemmas it presented. Guyana's history is etched with the legacies of colonialism, slavery, and indentured servitude, leaving a complex social fabric and a legacy of economic and political instability. The country's post-colonial era was, and continues to be marked by ethnic tensions, a very long period of authoritarian rule, crime sprees, and economic challenges. High unemployment rates and limited opportunities hindered upward mobility for many back in the 70s. These factors contributed to a persistent desire among many Guyanese to seek a better life elsewhere, with the United States often seen as a beacon of hope and prosperity. It must be noted, though, that early migration patterns from Guyana to the US and even to the UK and other countries were largely facilitated through legal channels, with family reunification and skilled worker programs playing significant roles. However, as immigration policies tightened in the latter half of the 20th century, legal pathways became increasingly narrow and difficult to navigate. This created a fertile ground for the emergence of alternative routes, with the backtrack gradually solidifying as a viable, albeit dangerous option for those determined to reach American and other shores. The backtrack from Guyana was not a singular, fixed route, but rather a fluid and adaptable network that shifted and evolved in response to changing circumstances and enforcement efforts. It typically involved a multi-stage journey, often commencing with a flight to a neighboring country, such as Brazil or Venezuela, followed by overland travel through remote and often treacherous terrain. Smugglers, known as agents or guides, played a crucial role in facilitating this movement, arranging transportation, providing temporary shelter, and navigating border crossings. The journey itself was fraught with peril. Migrants often faced arduous treks through dense jungles, dangerous river crossings, and exposure to harsh weather conditions. They were also vulnerable to exploitation, robbery, and violence at the hands of smugglers or corrupt officials. The psychological toll was equally significant, with the constant fear of detection and the uncertainty of the future weighing heavily on those who undertook this journey. The decision to embark on the backtrack was rarely taken lightly. It often represented a last resort, a desperate gamble to escape the perceived limitations of life in Guyana and pursue a better future for oneself and one's family. Economic hardship was a primary driver, with many migrants seeking higher wages, better job opportunities, and improved living standards, hopefully to be found in the US. Beyond economic factors, socio-political considerations also played a huge role. Perceived discrimination, injustice, political instability, and a lack of faith in the government during that time contributed to a sense of hopelessness and a desire for change. For many, the backtrack provided an escape from crime and violence, while others were drawn by the promise of greater freedom and opportunities for personal growth. The experiences of those who undertook the backtrack are as varied as the individuals themselves. Even today, as you speak with some of those that made this journey, you will hear tales of resilience and resourcefulness, highlighting the strength and determination required to overcome the obstacles they encountered. Others still speak of fear, vulnerability, and the constant threat of deportation that have recently become even more frightening. Many still carry the emotional scars of separation from loved ones and the uncertainty of their legal status in the USA. Back in the 70s and 80s, the backtrack phenomenon had significant implications for both Guyana and the United States. For Guyana, the continuous outflow of its citizens represented a brain drain, as skilled and educated individuals sought opportunities elsewhere. This certainly hindered economic development and exacerbated existing social and economic challenges. Additionally, the reliance on remittances from those who had successfully migrated created a dependency that still masks underlying social issues into the 21st century. For the US, the influx of undocumented Guyanese migrants presented a complex set of challenges. While they contributed, and still do contribute to the economy through their labor and consumption, their undocumented status left them vulnerable to exploitation and marginalization. Like migrants from other countries, Guyanese were forced to work in low-wage jobs, often well below the standards of dignity they had previously enjoyed. These migrants, most of them, lacked access to basic social services and lived in constant fear of detection and deportation. This created a cycle of poverty and perpetuated social inequalities. The criminalization of irregular migration led to human rights abuses, as migrants were often detained in harsh conditions and denied due process. US border enforcement measures also incentivized riskier and more dangerous routes, further endangering the lives of those that were seeking a better life. This is one of the many stories of the people of Queens. In conclusion, we can see that the backtrack stood as a powerful symbol of the human desire for a better life, even in the face of extraordinary challenges and risks. This clandestine route, born out of economic hardship, socio-political unrest, and the allure of the American dream, facilitated the movement of countless Guyanese and individuals from many other Caribbean countries to the United States. While the backtrack in those days offered glimmers of hope for those seeking to escape the limitations of their circumstances, it also highlighted the urgent need for the government of Guyana and other countries to address the root causes of migration. Today, many persons can look back on those days as an adventurous journey and perhaps smile at the memory. Was it worth the effort? Those who shared their stories with us have said, of course it was. While there are some who express painful regret, most Guyanese migrants have flourished and prospered over the years and decades in their new country. Many of them have become staunch contributors to the social structures of their communities. In retrospect, you will find that the days of the backtrack will for most remain a treasury of bittersweet memories. What do you think? We hope that you have found today's episode interesting, and we look forward to sharing much more with you. Our sincere thanks for spending some of your time with us. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us how you feel about our videos and the stories in them. We really value your contributions as these help us to create better content. Do join us on the next episode of The Queen's Digest magazine. Goodbye for now.